All right, welcome back, guys. And in this lesson, we want to look at what an HTML document is. Okay, so essentially, an HTML document is a file that contains code used to create and structure content for the web. Okay, so this document tells the browser how to display text, how to render images, links, and other elements on the web page. All right. So to show us exactly what an HTML document is, I'll need to open up my Windows File Explorer. So I'm presently on my desktop. You can have this anywhere you like on your computer, but I'm going to have mine on my desktop. So I'm going to right click and then go to new, create a new folder. I'm going to call this folder HTML. So this folder is what we use throughout this course. So right now I created this folder, and we can actually create our HTML document within this folder from the File Explorer, but I'm going to let us do everything within VS Code. So all we need to do is to right click on this folder and then go to show more. That's if you're on Windows 11, and then open with code. So if you don't have this option, you can simply click on the VS Code icon wherever you've installed it. So once you do that, you're going to be greeted with this. Once you do that, you're going to be greeted with this interface, the VS Code interface. So all we need to do is to go back to our File Explorer, right click on the folder we created, and then drag it inside of VS Code. Okay. So if I go to my Explorer within VS Code, it tells me that I'm inside the HTML folder that I have created. So what we want to do now is to actually create our first HTML document. So within VS Code, once you are on the Explorer tab, you notice you have all these other icons to create a new file, a new folder, to refresh, and then to collapse. So we want to create an HTML document, which is a single file. So we need to click on this icon, and then I'm going to name this file index.html. So the reason why we are naming this file index.html is because index.html is like the entry point to our website. So if we want to have our own page, it would be wrong for us to name it homepage.html. But the right practice is to name it index.html, because that is going to be the entry point to the website when the browser is loading the web page. Okay, so we have our first document, but we've not written any code. So to start typing an HTML document, VS Code is so smart that it's going to help us auto-complete most of the codes we are going to write. Okay. So there's a shortcut to have like a boilerplate or an HTML skeleton. But before that, I'm just going to say the first thing we want to do is to have our angle bracket, exclamation mark, then doc type space HTML, and then close this line with a right angle bracket. So what this does is it declares the type of document and declares that we want to write the recent version of HTML, which is HTML5. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to go down and then have our HTML tag. So the HTML tag is like the container or the root wrapper of all of our HTML code. So I'm going to have my left angle bracket HTML and then right angle bracket, and inside of this opening and closing HTML tag, I'm going to have two other tags. The first one is going to be the head tag, opening and closing, and then under the head tag, we're going to have the body tag, opening and closing. So here you have it. This is like the skeleton of all of the HTML codes we are going to write. Okay. So let's look at the shortcut that VS Code is going to help us to create. So I'm going to highlight everything and delete. And then to use the VS Code shortcut, I'm just going to say hold shift and then 1, that is the exclamation sign. And if I hit enter, this is going to give me like the boilerplate of the HTML document. Now notice everything is still almost the same thing, but with a few more codes from the previous time. So the code on line 1 declares the document type and the HTML5 version, like I said before, HTML5. Now the HTML tag is the root element of the HTML page. So essentially it represents it holds everything we're going to write within our HTML document. The head tag contains meta information like title, character sets, CSS links, and all of that. Okay. Now, the body tag contains the visible content on the web page, like our headings, our paragraphs, our images, our links. All will go into the body tag. But quickly, let me explain each of these lines before we go. So the first tag, the meta tag, has an attribute of character set. So the attribute declares that this HTML document is going to be written in UTF-8, which is like the standard alphabetic characters. Okay. Now the second meta tag tells the viewport, specifies the viewport of the browser. This is basically saying on every device switch, I want the initial scale of my website to be 1.0, which is essentially 100%. Okay. So the title specifies the title of the web page. So if I come here and say my first website, so I've given the title of this web page, or this HTML document rather, as my first website. So here you have it. This is what an HTML document looks like. Okay. The head tag contains the invisible aspect or the invisible content, while the body tag contains the visible content. So HTML documents are the foundation of every web page. Browsers like Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, they all read the HTML documents to render the content that you see within the browser. Okay. So understanding understanding the basic HTML document is actually the first point before we start going into actual writing of the HTML code. So in the next class, in the next lesson, we'll look at the head tags, the paragraph tag. We'll actually go deeper into writing real HTML code. So see you in the next class.